You don't need to believe all of your desires are already here to start living in the end. In fact, trying to believe actually keeps you stuck. Feeling like you have everything you want is not the starting point. The starting point is tiny, loopable moments that shift your self-image into somebody who can have everything they want. You don't live in the end because you believe. You start living in the end so that your belief can catch up. In this video, I share easy ways to slip into the end today. If you're new here, I'm Cassie, and I help you create an inner voice that's your friend. And I am a huge Neville Goddard fan, so give me a follow if that's up your alley. I don't know which way. The key to achieving all of your goals and your wildest dreams is not about doing 1,000 affirmations a day or hyping yourself up or forcing yourself to believe. It's about cutting off the version of you who doesn't have the things you want. It's a really well-known Neville concept, killing the old man, which essentially means that if the current you doesn't have everything you want, that you has to die. And it sounds extreme and bleak, but it's true. If your self-image is not of someone who is really successful or has lots of love in their life or has tons of money, if you don't have that self-image, those things are not going to happen for you. So you absolutely have to change your self-identity into someone who is used to having tons of money in their life, who expects love all around them, who expects for things to unfold perfectly for them and to achieve wild success. And that is possible to do. With little tiny shifts throughout the day, consistency will change this. The easiest way to shift your self-identity is by having little tiny self-identity beliefs that you can turn to no matter what happens during the day. Ones that don't feel like a stretch or that force you to do mental gymnastics, but that feel okay right now and still work to move the needle. So for instance, when you receive a bill, instead of being like, oh, money sucks, I feel poor, you can go with, I handle my finances. Money moves and I direct it. I'm someone who handles money calmly. Of course I'm a master of my finances. These aren't like huge sweeping beliefs. These aren't saying I'm a millionaire, but these are empowering phrases about how you can handle money that someone in your position might say and someone who has tons of money might say. So getting used to this feeling, making this your identity, helps shift you from someone who panics over money to someone who handles things calmly. Similarly, if you text someone and you don't get a response back right away, rather than feeling like, oh, they must not like me, or I said something wrong, you can go with, I'm not chasing, things come to me. No response just means they're busy, like I am. People enjoy talking to me, so whatever. My relationships feel easy. Changing to feeling secure, no matter what happens in this circumstance, is not only a self-identity shift, but it just makes you feel better in the moment and prevents you from stressing out your brain and body over something that is completely unknown. You know, this person probably is busy. We all are. So it just puts you in a more comfortable place and allows you to shift even more towards someone who is very secure in their relationships. Also, if your day job isn't something that you really want long-term, instead of thinking that it's a failure, you can frame it as, this is a stepping stone to my next chapter. Or, this doesn't define me. Or, I'm building something beyond this. Or, this is ideal for me right now, and I've got even bigger and better things coming up. I mean, even Superman had a day job, and there's a 0% chance that he didn't carry that secret knowing that he was bigger and better than the reporter job that he had. So you can carry yourself in a similar way. Like for me, sometimes I just pretend that I'm like cosplaying my day job. Doesn't mean that I don't give it attention when I need to and take it seriously when I need to, but to me it's kind of just like a fun suit that I put on sometimes, knowing that I'm building something bigger and better. Another thing you can do is have quick single moments that you can zap to at any time during the day, like a daydream, living in the end moment. This could be sipping coffee and looking out at a gorgeous view, or receiving a text from someone you love and feeling warm, or taking a look at an account statement and smiling. Like, these moments should be short enough, so short that your brain can't come in with a bunch of doubts and questions about how this could even happen. And inserting these little moments into your daily internal thought cycle helps shift the needle towards changing your self-image. And keep in mind that if you are a super rich person, when you look at an account, chances are you're not really gonna be like, oh my God, look at how much money I have. This is so awesome. This is so crazy. It's gonna feel normal. So again, repeating these moments consistently, giving them to you during the day at any time, helps shift your self-image into someone where these things are normal. Money, relationships, you know. I love this quote from Awakened Imagination where Neville says, after you've assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, do not close the experience as you would a book, but carry it around like a fragrant odor. Instead of being completely forgotten, let it remain in the atmosphere, communicating its influence automatically to your actions and reactions. A mood, often repeated, gains momentum that is hard to break or check. So be careful of the feelings you entertain. Habitual moods reveal the state with which you are fused. So zap these little moments in there. They make you feel good. And if you can't argue with them, then they help you maintain that mood, which helps you shift your self-identity. Going one step further, if you find that experiences from your past make it really, really hard for you to change your self-identity, Neville says, revise them. He calls it the pruning shears of revision. And I do have a meditation to do that, which I'll share at the end of the video. But essentially, you know, if you grew up really poor and it's really hard for you to wrap your mind around wealth, change the story. Go in your imagination and say that your grandparents, you know, made a bunch of really savvy investments and now there's, you know, $8 million in assets that you have to split with your cousins. You have to figure it out. Yes, it's delusional, but your past is like a root that affects how you grow in the future. So if you don't like what happened in the past, change it. If it helps you catch your mood and build a better future, that is fine. You don't have to tell anybody. You can do this for yourself, but it does a whole lot for changing your general mood around a subject and for making it easier for you to grow in a different direction moving forward. Another helpful thing is what I call quiet rewiring, where you just have little symbols of your goals and desires in your environment, not aggressively. Like, for instance, you could Photoshop a big bank statement and just have it out, not to look at and pore over and have your brain figure out how this could happen, but just for your eyes to land on every now and again and let those numbers start to feel normal. Or you could have, you know, a little cutout of a house that you think is beautiful, or a location that you would love to go on vacation, just out, you know, not in your face, but just to land on every now and again. Or you could have little notes with affirmations on them that are neutral so that your brain can't argue with them, but that still shift the needle. For instance, every day I'm getting better and better, or I'm growing and changing and love where I'm going. If that one feels, you know, like a stretch, then take it down a notch. Something like, I deserve a comfortable and expansive life. And if you disagree with that, which I actually had at certain points in my life, something that can help, I find, is a little healthy competition. So you might think of, you know, all the billionaire turds out there. Like, do you think that they ever questioned for a second that they deserved a comfortable and expansive life? No. And one might even say that you deserve it more than they do. And I know that's not fair to say, all people are equal, but it's funny enough in my brain to think that, you know, it kind of makes me kind of puff up a little and I'm like, oh, well, I do deserve a comfortable and expansive life. Look at these other turds out there. You know, whatever, if you have to go in the back door like that, that's fine. But the key is having things that feel calm and feel neutral, but are still forward moving. Another really known Neville concept is you are in Barbados, which stems from when Neville really wanted to visit his family in Barbados for the holidays, but had no money to do that. And his teacher Abdullah was like, well, you want to go to Barbados? You're in Barbados. The idea being that thinking from Barbados, you know, like feeling like being in the rooms he would be in, smelling what he would smell, hearing what he would hear, seeing what he would see, by really in his imagination believing that he is there and thinking from there, the 3D world would arrange for him to be there. And as opposed to thinking, how do I get there? How do I get there? How do I get there? You know, by just feeling and believing that he's there, the situation would unfold for him to be there. And as the story goes, you know, his brother offered him an all expenses paid trip to Barbados completely out of the blue to get there for the holidays. And when it comes to living in the end, for me, the idea, imagining physically being in a place can feel easier than shifting my self-concept. And also, you know, on top of that, going to places is awesome. So, you know, like if you want to go to the beach, you think from the beach. You feel the sensation of your body settling into a towel on the sand. You feel the sand between your toes. You hear the ocean waves. You feel the warmth of the sun on your arms. And, you know, by really imagining and believing yourself to be there, then the circumstances will unfold for you to easily get there. And in a similar vein, you know, if I, for instance, look at a bill and it stresses me out and I am having trouble reaching for my, you know, self-identity statement there, I can quiet my brain by going into complete fantasy zone where I imagine, you know, gold dust floating into the windows and like sparkling in the air and it just feels abundant and magical. And that can be enough to get me to catch that mood and, you know, not spiral over the bill, because I do have a really, really loud old man in place around finances because I spent many years struggling with finances. So I will find myself getting triggered, especially in that regard. But again, then just like jumping to this like fantasy moment and like feel like seeing and feeling the gold dust, and you know, that can zap me right out of it and I can catch that mood of abundance. I read a post by someone on the Neville Goddard subreddit recently, which I really loved this method, where, you know, you can create just this kind of like superhero version of you in your imagination. Or as this person put it, like he created a kind of like an ethereal, angelic, almost godlike sort of version of himself that looks different, you know, had like white eyes and like blue skin or something. And that kind of makes it easier to take a step out of yourself and like you can embody that fantastical character, the superhero version of you, where it's like, of course everything works out for me. Of course things unfold in my favor. Of course I'm almighty and powerful, and you know, still chill about it, not like an all-powerful and evil god, but just someone who like sits calmly in their power. And having that kind of fantasy version of yourself that you can turn to is almost like a skin that you can wear sometimes that can help pull you out of any like 3D drudgery that's going on and make you feel a little bit more above it all, which is really helpful and can also start familiarizing feeling a different and more powerful self-identity. Something else to keep in mind is that when you change your self-identity, your energy changes as well. And this is another thing that you need to get used to, you know, not just inhabiting this new identity and energy at home when you're alone, but trying it out in the world, giving it a test run. So, you know, slip on that superhero skin or the energy of someone who everything always works out for, and give it a whirl while you're at the grocery store or walking down the sidewalk or hanging out with your mom or your best friend. Another consideration is that when your identity and your energy changes, the people who have been around you your whole life probably aren't going to feel used to it. So this is just another area where you need to maintain and repeat it, and that repetition and consistency will work for you as well as for the people around you to adjust to your new identity and energy. And changing your identity from the inside out can feel more challenging than when it changes from the outside in. For example, like if you won the lottery or got a huge inheritance, because we put so much power on the 3D, you know, it's easier to be like, hey, I have a ton of money now, and walk around like that in your life. But and I also know that a lot of people who win the lottery end up losing it all. And I dare say it's because they didn't actually change their self-identity from the inside out. But it just goes to show that inhabiting that new identity out and about in the world is also something that takes repetition and practice, but in time will start feeling normal. Neville says in The Law and the Promise, there can be no outer change until there is first an imaginal change. So I hope with some of the tips in this video, you're able to insert those living in the end moments into your imagination to change your self-image to someone who can have everything that you want. Because living in the end only becomes easier and fuller and bigger and more fun from here. Because remember, you don't wait to believe to live in the end. You live in the end until it becomes the only thing that feels like you. If you've made it here to the end, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if any part of this resonated, or if you have anything that you would like to add, please do comment. And if you're interested in more content like this, give me a follow because I have a lot more to say. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you next time.